Welcome everyone to Touching Base. I'm your host, Eric Arnold. Tonight, I'm going to be joined by my Delta variants, Andrew Naw and Joseph Olson. Gentlemen, how you guys doing?
Evening.
Hey, good evening. Doing great.
Good. We have not seen each other for a couple weeks. We took a little hiatus last week. I got to take a little family vacation, and there's some other orders were being taken place, but we are back, and apparently we missed a lot while we were gone, so we've got a lot to catch up on tonight. But before we do any of that, I want to ask you guys the ever important question. What are we drinking today?
I got the New Belgium Voodoo 2K IPA.
You do that voodoo.
I'm revisiting the Flying Dog Chesapeake Wheat. It was absolutely scrumptious last time, so I'm doubling down.
Yeah, and I am once again, this is, believe it or not, the final Mully's that has been sitting in my fridge. I had to go back and find it in the back, but the old Mully's IPA, one of their standards. But I'm going to enjoy that this evening while we catch up on sports. Real quick, there's been a lot of news. Obviously, the Olympics is going on. So that's probably our number one topic. Have you guys been watching? Ratings have been down for the Olympics. I know I've tried to catch as much as I can, but I seem to have some issues. One, finding it at a reasonable hour on TV, not recorded. But just overall, even watching the men's game, the men will actually play the night we're recording. I'm at 12:30 in the morning, so I'm going to try to stay up for that and like to watch it just to see how they do. But what about you guys?
Well, I will tell you that the first thing that I'm having trouble with is that I can't stay away from the
second thing you're having trouble with. The first thing you're having trouble with is your computer, apparently.
The first thing I'm having trouble with is the Zoom app.
Right. I haven't got that figured out in a year, but okay. Yeah.
It's the struggle's real for sure. But no, but I mean, as far as the Olympics, the problem is that the news is on all the time, and by the time I can even catch a recorded event, it's hard. If it's anything that I'm interested in, I already know the result, and it takes a very, very conscious effort to stay away from that, because all the events happen, like you said, overnight, and then by the time it gets to prime time, or we call it prime time, it's really the time that we finally hit the couch after work. I already at least check my phone a couple times and realize that Simone Biles is out of the Olympic team or whatever it is, and whatever the event is, I already know the result. So
today I saw on my Facebook, I saw people talking about the women's softball from 2 days ago. And they're saying, look, women's softball's 3-0. I think they have a chance to medal. And we already know at this point, they are still 2 games away from the finals, where they lose in the finals. They come in silver. Spoiler alert for anyone who's watching. But they lose, I believe, 2-0 to Japan, and to the same girl who smoked them a couple years ago. They just cannot seem to beat.
Yeah, honestly, I've kind of keep forgetting about it day to day, and I'll come across somebody talking about it, and obviously this morning was all the Simone business, so it's
Simone.
I tuned in a bit today just because I have a TV kind of next to my desk, and I just can kind of have listen. And I didn't even realize it was so delayed. I don't know if that's good or bad, but I was watching the U.S. and Australia women's football match, and I was kind of into it. I'm like, oh man, this is kind of boring, but I wonder if somebody's gonna score. And then
I do like the women's soccer team. I really do.
How do you not at this point?
One of the very first sports jerseys I bought, besides actually a Maryland gear for my daughter, was actually a Morgan jersey for my daughter.
That's awesome. Yeah, I made my wife put it on the other day just because I wanted to see how many of the old players, that's not fair, the World Cup champion players,
Rapinoe,
Rapinoe and Tobin Heath, Carly Lloyd, there's so many of them still playing. It's just Julie Ertz, who's her husband is Zach Ertz.
He plays the foosball.
Yeah, he's also a footballer. But yeah, no, it's just it's good.
Their kids will have phenomenal DNA, by the way.
Their kids. Oh, there's a chance that they'll be athletic. Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, it's just I'll watch some random stuff. Like I was saying earlier, I put on some synchronized women's diving today. And that was different. And then the 3x3 men's basketball tournament.
How was it? I haven't watched that. That is something I do want to watch.
It's a little chaotic. It's cool. It's very fast, but it's like the pickup game, or the playground game that you played in your neighborhood growing up. It's just a little bit faster. Not a little bit. That's okay. Yeah, it said the 30 plus.
Nobody calls fouls.
Fat guy with a beer. It's right. It's a lot faster than that.
Okay.
And there are
everybody's checking threes.
Well, excuse me, they're twos because it's only.
I'm sorry, ones and twos. Sorry. But it's not make it take it.
It was interesting. So I'm glad that I saw it, but I don't have a desire to see it again
Who
necessarily.
was playing on the U.S. team? That's got to be like, I mean, is it people playing with an Ice Cubes league, or is it like?
I wasn't interested enough to determine that.
I have to look that up. I do need to know. Is that like former college kids? Like, I just picture it being someone like Jim or Fredette, or like I don't know.
Well,
like two of his boys.
you said about former college kids. I don't know if we're prepared to transition to a new topic yet, but I was thinking like the U.S. men's team lost to France the other night. Is that correct?
Well, because they essentially took the third quarter off. Like,
Well, yeah.
I think they
Why
scored
would
like
you want
2
to play
points.
that?
They were smoking them. They were winning the entire game, and you're kind of going, okay, this is the team we thought it was going to be, or hoped it would be. And then they decided to score 0 points. I mean, I'm being facetious with that, but it was close to it. I want to say it was single digits, if not maybe 11, at the most. But they essentially gave up the third quarter, tried to make a run. The fourth, now really, it was still a close game in the final seconds. They just missed a couple last-second shots, and they were open. They just missed.
Okay, so maybe I'm a little bit premature on it.
No, they lost. They should have won by 20. I mean, we're
sure
by 20.
But I was thinking, like, maybe we could say this for a week or two when we know more of their results. But like, is it time to look at putting collegiate players back in, at least for basketball? No.
No.
Okay.
Not for me. I want my best players out there because they are it's our sport. And maybe I'm being just bad at this. I was actually sitting there thinking, if you really want to make a case for yourself being the best player, I would love to see LeBron James fly from Space Jam, because that thing's bombing. Okay. Go over to Japan and redeem this team. Like, if you want to, get into the like Jordan, like epic, like when you start becoming like a folk hero, that's what he should do. Like when they had a couple of those spots open up when Bradley Beal left, he should have gotten on a plane. And I believe he's hurt. So, I mean, this would be, not likely. And I know he's already done it and that kind of good stuff, but I would have loved to have seen him. But no, I don't want the college players out there. I want to win this thing with our best players. Honestly, even for the baseball stuff, like I like the World Baseball Classic more than I do the actual like Olympics, because those guys are in the middle of the season. I wish they do it almost like hockey where they cancel, take a little break and let those guys go represent their countries.
Sure, I get that. My concern, I get best on best. You're right, because that's what makes Olympic hockey to me, like an international hockey, like is incredible because you get such a high caliber competition. Anyway, my point was more so like, and again, this is like total noob, like uninitiated NBA, but I feel like the style of play and everything else, like all of the extracurriculars that go on in the NBA, it's not the same level. I don't know if it's the same level of compete. Whereas you got a couple of kids, from the SEC or from more accurately the ACC, the Big Ten, whatever, that are going to that have to like absolutely hustle, beyond all compare for 22, 25 games and then get in the tournament. Like, I don't know. I just think is that level of compete a little bit different than the NBA these days.
It might be. I think what you're talking about is chemistry, like having that team chemistry. But what I'm talking about is physics. Like, I want to see the biggest, the baddest, the nastiest ones go out there. And there's only so listen, we've got great camaraderie, like we do well. I imagine even if we had to, we could go play a decent pickup game, but we're never going to be those guys, and I'm not comparing us to, Olympic athletes or anything like that.
Oh no.
But probably not even rec league athletes anymore. But, I want to see the best. I want to see those guys go at it.
Sure, but by your physics metrics, wouldn't Russia have about 300 Olympic gold medals in hockey by this point?
If they can pass their drug test.
Hey, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm not sure either of you are talking about physics with either of those maps you just described. But hey, circling back to your original question about like why are ratings down and stuff like that. Not only are we knowing the results before we get on there, but there's also like this cloud over the Olympics. Like, why must we call it?
Are you talking about the smog? Or are you talking about like
why must we call it 2020 Olympics? Like it's 2021. Like what
chaps me every single time. Every single time I hear that.
Is there anybody that's not thinking that when they look at whatever broadcast they're watching of the Olympics? And two, there is this cloud of, hey, the Japanese people don't even like want the games to be going on right now because of whatever, the COVID situation is in Japan. And so there's no fans. Like they're really, really like trying to jam this through because they realize if it doesn't happen this year, that it's just not going to happen. right? And so we're still going to stamp the 2020 stamp on these 2021 Olympics.
All the record books and stuff like that, it's going to say 2020 on it.
It just feels very, very forced to me, and I think that's really having a big old dip on the ratings. All of that combined is like the perfect storm of like, hey, we're just getting into this in there, and whatever happens, and we'll call it a day.
Well, and think of some of the alternatives too. People are outside going on family vacations and going to
Finally.
Yeah, all of these other things that they're these social events. I
got a tie-dye shirt that shows I went on a family vacation.
Maybe that it's just got a lot of unusually high amount of competition in terms of entertainment.
Well, it's not only that, but I also think that I haven't seen like the big stars like we normally do. You don't see, no, this is going to date me, but like the Dan and Dave commercials, you don't see. Remember those guys?
This is the face of someone who remembers that.
Yeah, no, thank you, guys. But you don't see the big like Simone Biles, like we were talking about her. Greatest of all time gymnast, that kind of good stuff. And she goes and gets hurt, so that's going to take a dip. Also, for me personally, I have a hard time just finding the daggone thing. I look like on NBC, and I'm trying to watch some of the stuff, but then I know some of the big games like are on Peacock or on different apps. And it's just different than before. It's not like where I know exactly how to find them. Maybe I sound like an old man. I'm breaking out the old man card here, but it's just not what I was used to. I was just used to being able to flip on essentially either like TBS or NBC or whatever station it's on and kind of go back and forth. And I always knew when the big ones were on. Even like swimming, we don't have a Michael Phelps this year. Katie Ledecky's out there competing. Basketball's down. All of our major ones, women's soccer, like they lost, their first match. Now they made it to the next round, knockout play, which we expected, but I just think we haven't been as dominant as we kind of expected. So that loses interest. The time zone, we already know what happens. And the fact it's just flat out difficult to find. I think all those things factor into these Olympics, playing down,
Yeah. Also the YouTube TV, by the way, too, is just the greatest thing ever when it comes to, I don't know how this calculates to ratings, but I can literally in prime time log into like the swimming, volleyball, basketball, whatever like the highlights are, and I can see all the important stuff that happened for the last day in about a half an hour on my YouTube TV. And then it's like, I don't need to sit there and plug into ratings for a couple hours or whatever like I used to do. And I can just see everything and pick and choose what I want to see, watch the 5 minutes I want to watch, and I feel like I'm caught up. And so I don't know if that's a factor also, but yeah, it's kind of just a perfect storm. I think this is just kind of a whole situation that hasn't happened before. And we're just going to, jam our way through this one and call it a day and see what happens next time.
Yeah. Good.
There's probably a little bit of just like kind of U.S. disinterest because, to your point, like we aren't, or somebody, one of you made it earlier, we aren't as dominant as we once were in a lot of way. We don't, the Phelps and Lochte kind of era is over, and like you said, Ledecky's still kicking around. There's a bunch of the women's football teams still kicking around that are household names, but aside from I don't know a dozen or so people, there what interest? There's a ton of people from Maryland. There's a swimmer I believe from Bel Air, like right where I am. And a girl on the rugby team that's from kind of nearby here. So
swimmers, we got a bunch of swimmers in this area.
Yeah, and I don't know. I think some of that like we're America, we can't win all the time, and it's not anywhere that I know on the map. Like granted, it's Tokyo, but give the average American adult a geography quiz.
No chance. Absolutely no chance. Yep.
But it's different than like '96 in Atlanta, and it's different than was it 2000 in Vancouver, where at least it's on the continent.
Right.
So I think that Salt Lake City. I think that those types of things contribute, and it's just like some biases also. Like Joe said, like just perfect storm about any kind of thing you can imagine, and it's just going to take people away from watching it, I guess.
Yeah. Well, speaking of things that are being taken away, one thing is actually not being taken away from us in Washington, and that's Alexander Ovechkin. He is going to be in this town for another 5 seasons, it appears. We kind of predicted this a couple weeks back, saying that there's a snowball's chance in hell that he leaves and possibly goes to like the Canadians or something like that. There was, a couple of rumors out there. They cleared some way with Dylan, and they signed Ovi to, a massive deal. You want to tell us a little bit about that, Andrew?
Yeah. So, it's massive for us, non-hockey players, but for, on a Ovechkin level, it's actually pretty much in line with his existing, contract, which is pretty amazing.
I remember getting upset about a 12-year.
Yeah, well, it's a 5-year extension for whatever 9.5 times
right?
5 is. Yeah, it's like 47.5 or something like that, which is great. It takes him, kind of lines him up with Backstrom. I think it's 1 year longer than Backstrom's.
Which is what we predicted.
Yeah, that'll take him to his age 40 season effectively, and I think at that point he can ride off into the KHL sunset. But it's good. And if you do the math, if he plays that whole entire contract, which I don't think there's any reason he wouldn't, he needs to average only 32.5 goals or something like that per year to beat Gretzky, which is pretty exciting.
That's not impossible. That's not easy.
No,
that's
it's
not a guarantee.
Not.
And you're always one injury, away from having to extend that season. But
and then
striking distance. Yeah.
In similar Caps news, they did move Brendan Dillon, the left-handed defenseman, out to Winnipeg got a couple of second-round draft picks back in return, which is nice. Restock that cabinet a little bit, and it cleared some cap space. I think about $3.9 million off the cap. Yeah, over the
that was the bigger issue.
Yeah, so you still have Ilya Samsonov, which just got qualified a tender because he's still a restricted free agent. Ovi was really your only UFA. So they still have about 4.1, I think it is, million in cap space. So maybe between 2.5 to 3, depending on what the qualifying offer is going to be, to dabble into free agency.
I saw a couple old names, Holtby, Chara, a couple of those guys, even Lundqvist, talking about coming back.
Holtby got bought out by Vancouver today.
Oh,
so
he did? Okay.
Makes him a UFA again. I still think he'd be a little bit too pricey. I think there's going to be a market for him.
Agreed.
But I think Chara's no worse than a coin flip. I think if Chara plays, which that's kind of 50-50, I think if Chara plays, he's going to come back to Washington because I think that was a good match last year. And but the Lundqvist thing, that's an interesting question too. Again, you'd be looking at very cost effective there. I just don't know what he's going to be, if he's going to be interested in playing, and then if he is, like what kind of condition he's going to be in.
Yeah.
Hey, one thing on the Ovi contract is that Ovi's, I believe, 36 now as of March. And so, it's a 5-year contract. And, I know there's not normally the dramatic drop off that sometimes we see in other sports. Ovi's had kind of a career that's been marked by consistency of playing most
Russian machine never breaks. Yeah.
Russian machine never breaks and all that stuff. And so we're talking about, he needs to average 32 goals over the course of that contract to beat Gretzky and, career goals and everything like that. And he's shown a little bit of, chinks in the armor the last year or so, as far as, getting some injuries, not major injuries, but things that have kept him out of a few games. And I think it'll be very interesting to watch over the next year or two if we do start to see that decline, especially because he's got a lot of miles on his legs at this point.
He's done some hard living too, from what I understand. So
he's
good for him.
Like a tofu and spinach guy, from what I understand. And so
he's like spaghetti with jalapenos or something like that, like every day at that one restaurant.
And he's been partying with Alex Semin recently, which is not recommended by any out of 5 doctors.
All I'm picturing is the way that he drank out of the Stanley Cup after they won.
That was the first time he had a beer, I bet.
We can all picture the look on his face after they recovered him from the bottom of that cup. And so if that is any indication of how he might react to a full season of NHL hockey at age 30.
There's a better chance that you remember that than he does. Because no way. I mean,
yeah, your point's well taken. I don't think it's any shoe-in. I was pretty cavalier about that. It's no guarantee that he's going to do it. I think it, if he drops 40 to 45 the next season or two, it gets really interesting. But I agree. There's absolutely no guarantee that he does it. I think
if he was in a wheelchair, you could still put him out there on the power.
He'd still
set him right up in his office, and he scores 10 goals. So I think even if he becomes a specialist, towards the end, and kind of just wanes it, I do think he's going to try to play it out just to at least get that that gold title.
I'm giddy thinking about what that feeling must be as an athlete to have that title, a record like that, or the baseball, the Barry Bonds with a home run record. I can't imagine what that feels like.
Yeah, no comparison. Absolutely not. All right, so a couple other things going on before we have to get out of here. Did you guys see stuff about the Big 12? I mean, there's some rumors about the Big 12 possibly disbanding, mostly and we haven't gotten there yet. This is still early stages, but arguably their 2 biggest schools in Texas and Oklahoma are essentially saying sayonara. and they're going to be trying to head over to the SEC. Now the SEC swears they haven't been interfering with this, and they were just shocked as everybody. But I'm sure. But it looks like they're going to be heading over that way. Do you think that's a good move for them? And do you think the Big 12 is going to disband?
So let me start with this one and say that the first thing that comes to mind whenever there are big schools jumping conferences is it's a money grab of some sort, right? That's always it's a money grab of some sort. There's obviously a huge paycheck to be made by watching Alabama and Texas and Oklahoma play each other every single year. I'm sure the TV contracts will be in the gazillions of dollars, all that kind of good stuff. The second thing that popped into my mind, though, was like, if you are, Oklahoma and Texas, we're kind of talking about them like they're the same beast. Oklahoma has been a lot better than Texas over the last decade. And I'm just thinking, not only is that true, but both of those schools, be careful what you wish for going into the SEC, because Oklahoma's not winning 11 games every year in the SEC.
No way. Absolutely not.
It's
a money thing. It's a mutual money thing. But I also remember Virginia Tech and Miami at the height of their, supremacy, coming over to the ACC and everyone predicting those guys dominating the ACC, and they have not been anywhere close to the programs that they were. And that's still when Frank Beamer was the coach. That's when, I don't know who the hell was the coach there, for a while there. Down in Miami, they seem like they changed, every couple seasons. But I remember them being extremely dominant, moving to the ACC, and then they thought that they were going to absolutely destroy the ACC, and that never came to fruition. So I kind of agree with you. Oklahoma, be careful what you wish for. There's no chance. Like, they're going to be competitive, absolutely, but you're playing essentially, Georgia, Florida, LSU. You're playing all these title contenders week in and week out, and you're just going to walk in there and walk all over them. I don't see that happening. Yeah,
when they're already giving up 50 points to Texas Tech and A&M and all these other guys in the Big 12. Well, A&M's SEC, but like all these other guys in the Big, these also rans in the Big 12 are putting up 45, 52, 50 whatever on a guy like Oklahoma, and now they're going to get a 230-pound Georgia Bulldog running downhill. Like, nope, pass.
Right.
Yeah, I remember watching a Oklahoma versus Texas Tech game a couple of years ago where Oklahoma won 66-59, and those games don't happen in the SEC. And by the way,
the bend and break defense.
Yeah. By the way, don't think that there's at least 5 or 6 teams in the SEC that are not ever giving up 50 points ever. So I just think that. Money, I get the money, there's big TV contracts, everything to be made, but be careful what you wish for. There have been, Texas A&M has kind of been viewed as the little brother to Texas for a long time. Texas A&M,
according to Andy Inc. in our whenever we were picking teams.
Texas A&M as currently constructed is a better program than Texas, right? And they're already in the SEC. And Texas is having a hard time competing for titles in the Big 12 as it's constructed now. So good luck in the SEC West or wherever they would plant, in the SEC. So I don't think it's a good move. I'm sure there's money to be made, but as far as like them competing for an SEC title, that program is not close to that right now.
What do you think about WVU in Kansas? What are they going to do? Are they coming to the Big Ten?
Are we talking football only?
No, there's rumor about them leaving the Big 12 as well, in either going to, I think Kansas is rumored to be coming to the Big Ten, and WVU apparently has talks with both the ACC and the Big Ten. And personally, I'm all for it. I'd love to see both teams come over. Basketball in particular would be very competitive and bring kind of an old rivalry in WVU. But I think those are the next steps to fall. If those guys leave, I think you're looking at the end of the Big 12, or possibly them almost, I don't want to say becoming a mid-major, but you're looking at those guys. They're going to be looking to grab some teams. I don't know if it's going to be someone like a Boise State. I don't know who it's going to be, but they're going to have to start adding some people.
Yeah, I've seen some versions of like all of the Power Five like floating around, where essentially every one of the big conferences has 16 teams, with like Notre Dame in the ACC or something like that, and the Boise's and whatever, and some of the, Sun Belt folks going out to the Pac-12 or Pac whatever it would be at that point, and like having a 5-16 conference. I mean,
the Pac-4.
It's really cool, and I agree that it's very much a money thing, because you think about like the SEC, like, and it's very regionalized too, and you almost create kind of this whole like ecosystem regionally where you have almost your own league by yourself. Oh, and also there's the national league.
It really does become like kind of like the South, the East, the North.
Given that explanation, pardon the word, but like like the segregation is like interesting, like competitively when you look at, and then
the regionalized, it's almost
it's interesting. But then you still have the problem now where, everybody in the SEC talks big S and about how they're all big and bad, and then they, go out and play like the 4th or 5th seeded Big Ten team and get whomped, and it's just like, hey, if you're going to talk all that S the whole season, like maybe actually do well in non-conference play. And like, I don't think you'd have as much non-conference play. So you'd have a lot of this, like, measuring contests about this conference is better than that conference. It's like, well, we don't know, because they play two, sisters of the poor from the Pac-16 or whatever. And
we're also I think it also is going to lead to college football expansion in the playoffs.
Undoubtedly.
You're having that many good teams.
5 at large and 3, at large. That 5 automatic 3 at large.
Champions. Maybe 1 out of each of those places, and then there's maybe like 4 or 5 other, or 4 at large bids or something like that. Yeah, I could see something like that happening. Also, Aaron Rodgers, Deshaun Watson. I know you guys love this conversation. Aaron Rodgers finally showed up to camp. Shockingly, it looks like he's going to be playing on a 1-year deal. I don't know how that's going to work. I can't figure out how they're going to just keep him for 1 year, but apparently that's going to be the deal. They're going to let him do 1 year, and then they're going to release him. I can't believe they're not going to trade him for nothing. If that's going to be the case, but they're going to make their run. And Deshaun Watson apparently now is still available. He's up, and now they are listening to to trade offers. A lot of people are asking for Washington to make a push for them. I'm personally in the boat of saying absolutely not. And just I'll personally, I think Washington just got rid of their sexual harassment image. These past couple of seasons, they're regaining all of their trust back in the media, back with the fan base. They've done a great job with that, kind of changing their culture. Really, if it was almost anything else, I'd say, take a chance, go after him. But they cannot, in my opinion, go after Deshaun Watson at this point. The timing of it is just way too poor. They're rebuilding like a whole trust, and like I said, everything that was going on with their front office, with the cheerleaders and the sexual harassment cases, and all that kind of good stuff. Bringing in a guy who's got 200 different sexual accounts, whatever they are. That just can't happen. So I don't think that's going to be an option for Washington at all. And I personally wouldn't even offer a trade for him.
Yeah, I like to look at these two things differently. So you're concentrating on Deshaun Watson.
They are 2 different things. Yep.
Yeah, but Deshaun Watson first. First of all, I absolutely agree about Washington. I mean,
would you trade Kirk Cousins?
I
know you hate him.
Yeah, I do, but I mean, every single talented athlete has a suitor in the NFL, right? I'm not sure what environment that would work in, but I absolutely agree. Washington's not the right fit right now with the way they're trying to reconstruct their image, and have really done a nice job of that over the last couple of years. But I think that the real sad part, if I'm a Texans fan, is that, I mean, Deshaun Watson was literally untouchable, like a year ago, and now
6 months ago.
6 months ago. Certainly a year ago, he's untouchable, franchise quarterback for the next 10 years, and now he's at a point where not only is he touchable, but his trade value for the Texans is like really, really down. And they're really going to have to take him at a price cut if they're going to get something off of him. And even so, their roster is terrible anyways. And so I think that they're really an uphill battle if they want to trade him and get something worthwhile for a talent like him.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think you touch him with a 10-foot pole. I think it's a hard sell to a fan base. I think it's a hard sell to management at this point, who is, are so ordinarily risk averse to these types of things. Anyway, the Texans are going to get relegated if that was a thing. Between the roster being bad and like they hired some guy like out of the kitchen to be their head coach or some such.
Yeah.
Like that's gonna be a bad place to be for a few years. Aaron Rodgers, like, my God, just stop. Please, just like leave us alone and, like, I don't know, do anything else that we don't have to talk about you.
He seems very me centric. Like I'm losing my patience with him. Like, and I don't know if it's fair because he's obviously talented. He's obviously putting the work in.
It's not all him. It's the way the sports media kind of portrays the whole situation, right? Like, we have to break into like ordinary
Diane Woodley's apartment.
Show me, Aaron Rodgers and his shirt from The Office. Like,
it was funny. I enjoyed it.
But like, we were doing other things the other day. We didn't need this as breaking news. And it's like, going back to the contractual thing. I think it's 3 years. I think there's some void years so that you could, like, effectively you can still trade him at the end of next year. Mm-hmm. Or go and redo it if you decide you have a change of heart. It's interesting. I think the Packers are making the best out of it that they can, and like both parties are able to save a little bit of face. But it's just like, who really thought he was going anywhere this year? Like, this is so stupid. It all started back before the draft, and it's like we could have skipped like whatever the 2 months of this or 3 months of this and just like whatever.
Yeah,
I remember I was at the same point with Dak Prescott talk last year when we just not stop talking about his contract. I feel like I'm at that point with Aaron Rodgers right now. Yeah. It's kind of that dead point in the sports cycle where we're just looking for NFL stuff to talk about. But it's never really felt like Aaron Rodgers has been a good fit in Green Bay, even though it's kind of worked and they've been competitive and they won a Super Bowl anyways. I just think that his style, like, he's kind of prickly even when he's happy. He's kind of condescending.
His own family. I mean, he's not talking to his family for a while. I know who's the old girlfriend, Olivia Munn.
Yeah.
Came out and said, yeah.
Can you imagine? No, you're not good enough. Go away.
Yeah. Like, I know that she came out at one point and said that it's deserved from both ends, like him not talking to his family.
Yeah.
There's just something that just doesn't seem to fit. Now, I watched some of his interviews. He seems charming. He seems, engaging and funny, and his teammates seem to like him. I know, Devontae Adams is rooting for him right now, pretty hardcore. Which he got a 99 rating in Madden, by the way, which I think is a different topic.
But see, I don't
way too much.
But see, I watched Devontae Adams. I watched some random, I think it was a 49ers game, and Devontae Adams, like, he gave me brought back Calvin Johnson kind of memories. Like that.
Megatron Calvin Johnson.
Yeah, like I'm not saying like he has all those physical attributes.
Sure.
But like, whenever he wanted the ball, he got it. All right, or whenever
Aaron Rodgers was not his quarterback. Aaron Rodgers is not his quarterback. Is he still a 99?
Not 99. He's still a top 3 receiver.
Top 3? You think so?
Yeah. I have no problem with that. But who's your top 3 receivers?
You're gonna put me on the spot. God bless it.
Well, think about it. We can talk about it next week.
Okay, all right. I will. I bet I can probably name 5. If I really have to. I will sit down. Yeah,
I'm interested in hearing your 5.
I see the wheels turning, and like I'm gonna have to sit down and think about it. But I bet I can name 5. But no, I was shocked about the 99 ranking. All right, we have got 5 minutes. I know this is not a sport that you guys really watch. But it's kind of made the news, and I was almost saddened by it. And I'm hoping that we get a chance to talk about it just before our time runs out. I don't know if you guys saw Conor McGregor once again is out there, tweeting some stuff. He's known to have a rivalry with this guy Khabib. Khabib whipped him, and is undefeated. And they he's the one when he threw the chair at the bus. It was at Khabib and his team. After he lost Khabib kept choking him out even after the fight was over, just to kind of send a message. There were some pretty harsh words, including before the fight, Conor saying that his dad was connected to the 9/11 attacks. I mean, like, that kind of stuff. Well, so Khabib tweets out a tweet to Dustin Poirier, who beat Conor again for the second time. Basically said, "Good always defeats evil." I knew that you would win. I hope you become a champion soon. Conor replies back this past week, right before it was deleted, and says, "So I guess COVID is good and your dad is bad because COVID killed his father." Okay, so that's the heel turn that we're kind of seeing with this guy. for me personally, I was a huge Conor McGregor fan. I loved all the hype. I found him wildly entertaining, massively talented. I loved him going up and down in weight and just whipping everybody and talking the entire time. And he was engaging as any fighter I've ever seen in my entire lifetime. But I believe we're watching the fall of the Titan, where someone is no longer on top anymore. And it's really, really unsettling and hard to watch. He's already gotten in trouble for punching the old man, drinking. He's had a couple issues, touching women. And he was saying some stuff about like Poirier's wife is sending me DMs and he was trying to post them and that kind of stuff. Even after he lost, he was still saying, your wife is, in my DMs and stuff like that. And it's just really, taken a dark kind of turn for this guy. Speaking of dark turns, Joe's screen just took a dark turn. If you guys want to reach him, he's at jvjoe12@gmail.com. I don't know. Like, I don't know if you can, if you have any initial thoughts on it or if it reminds you of anyone. I thought of like Tyson for a little while. Tyson eventually kind of became this like redemption story. We have we love redemption stories, and I'm hoping that's eventually how this turns out. But I'm just curious about your thoughts on maybe why that is, or what you're, just if it reminds you of anybody, before we check out.
Yeah. I mean, we're talking about kind of a redemption story. I mean, we talked about earlier Deshaun Watson, as far as like, there will be a suitor because he will produce wins on the football field. I think that if Conor McGregor is producing wins, in the ring or in
that
the
always
octagon,
helps.
That will definitely, he will stay in the spotlight as long as he's producing wins. It's always been, kind of a combination of wins and, the ridiculousness that he brings and the publicity that, and honestly, I enjoy it too. And all the good things that come with that. But I we can split hairs about crossing the line, certainly in terms of COVID and some other things, but he needs to start winning again, or else this will be an inevitable fall, and it will not last very much longer. And so regardless of what the details are, winning is going to keep him in the spotlight. And so he needs to solve that before he solves any of these other problems, or it's just going to go away quickly.
Yeah, Andrew, less than a minute.
I was going to recommend he replace the leprechaun as the mascot for Lucky Charms, but that wouldn't seem like a good move for General Mills. So what I'm thinking is he needs somebody in his management team or whatever to like just tell him to go lock himself away on a really sandy island and never come back because he's got the money to do that, and then everybody will be happier. Yeah. But I agree that it doesn't sound like the man's in a good headspace, and should probably just stay off of the interwebs when you're in that kind of state.
Stay off the interwebs for a little while, but we are not going to do that. We're going to do this again next week. Actually, next week, one of the things I want to talk to you guys about is the Cleveland Guardians name change. Ooh. And we'll see just what else happens. I actually kind of want to talk about name changes in general here in Washington, some other potential places that might see something like that coming. But we'll talk about that kind of stuff next week. Otherwise, gentlemen, if you got anything left, raise the glass to you. Yeah, the empty glass to finish it off. You guys have a wonderful week. See you guys.
Cheers.
Peace out, guys.
Audio Jungle.